Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Before the election, Theresa May was clear she wanted a mandate for her version of Brexit. But the mess that she says she created with the election result means that she has lost authority to dictate the terms. Now, some MPs are pushing for a different vision of Britain's journey out of the EU. Nick Watt has more.
Britain and Norway, two allies bound together by historic ties. 8 decades after our wartime alliance, could our friends to the north provide a template for the UK as we negotiate our way out of the EU? In quieter corners of Westminster, there are calls for the UK to follow the example of Norway during a transitional period after our departure from the EU. Some senior figures, still struggling to come to terms with the referendum, even whisper that what they are calling Norway for now could turn into a permanent arrangement. Under the Norway option, the UK would negotiate a semi-detached relationship with the EU as a member of a club known as the European Economic Area. Brexit supporters are likely to be alarmed by some of the club rules, which would mean membership of the single market, accepting the free movement of people with some right to impose restrictions. No vote, only consultation on EU rules. Accepting the rulings of a special court which always complies with judgments from the European Court of Justice. Substantial contributions to the EU budget. But Brexit supporters might be encouraged that under the club rules the UK would be out of the Common Agricultural Policy, no longer part of the Common Fisheries Policy, and out of the Customs Union, freeing up the UK to strike up trade deals around the world. The father of the Tory modernisation project, who made a point of not showing his hand during the referendum, is a fan.
Britain in the EA would be in the single market with all of the benefits of certainty that brings for businesses who are really concerned about the supply chain, connections with the European Union. But outside the customs union, so we could make our own trade agreements. I think in many ways, as a holding pattern, the EEA option has a huge amount to recommend it. Yes, we would continue to be making some contributions. That's compared with the loss of revenue that would come if we have a real economic slowdown, that would be kind of in the roundings. Yes, you would have to accept some kind of freedom of movement, although how much remains to be seen. It's not a certain, it isn't an absolute.
You don't have a vote on those rules.
But one veteran pro-European has his doubts.
I think politically, as a long-term solution, it's not viable because the British people, in the referendum, the general analysis is they voted to restrict free movement. So I think if the problem with Norway is that it has free movement of people with the EU.
The prospect of the UK modelling itself on Norway is being canvassed by supporters of a so-called soft Brexit who feel newly emboldened by Theresa May's setback in the general election. They believe that Philip Hammond's recent talk of a lengthy transitional period has given them licence to highlight Norway as a clean and simple solution. Under their breath, they are also saying that the so-called Norway for now option would allow the UK to hug the EU very close for a very long time. Some Leave supporters have told Newsnight they could sign up to the Norway option as long as it is subject to a strict time limit. Britain would also need to win concessions, for example a 50% cut in EU migrants and a 50% cut in contributions to the EU budget. But one minister told Newsnight that the Norway option would amount to a strategic mistake of historic proportions by turning the UK into a rule taker rather than a rule maker. One Leave supporter smells a rat.
If you're going in saying, look, I'll accept free movement, I'll accept paying in year out, for now or otherwise, why would your interlocutors ever give you a permanent deal? Why would they actually deliver a final deal as long as you're paying, as long as you are effectively in the EU because you're accepting free movement as well as accepting EU laws without even shaping them.
As Westminster basks in another heatwave, the political atmosphere is gently calming down ahead of the summer break. Below the surface, however, Brexit keeps bubbling away.
And Nick is here now. What does all this talk about Norway say about the state of Brexit, though?
Well, this does show that there are some senior Tories who are using the space that has opened up after that electoral setback for Theresa May to advocate ideas that she has dismissed. Now, the Prime Minister has always been very clear she's not interested in so-called off-the-shelf solutions like Norway. She's very clear Britain will negotiate its own bespoke deal. Now, the most senior person who is flexing their muscles is Philip Hammond. I'm hearing stories that before the election, when he tried to raise concerns with Number 10 about the possible economic consequences of Brexit, he was told, you are being overly pessimistic. Now, the Chancellor is not talking in private or in public about this Norway for now option, but some of his allies are saying that this could provide what he wants, which is a stable landing for the UK economy in the transition period.
And of course people are feeling freer to talk out to Theresa May than they were prior to the election. She's hearing more of this stuff anyway.
Yes, no, more of it is getting through. Yes.
So tell me, what are they, well, you've heard from one minister there, tell me what others are saying that are actually pro-Brexiteers.
Well, some Brexiteers are saying with great reluctance they could live with this idea on Norway, but others are deeply suspicious. One senior figure told me this is about trying to weaken Brexit in the hope of overturning the referendum. They are not Remainers, they are reversers. And I do have to say, I am beginning to hear talk in some quarters that Brexit may not actually happen. I spoke to one Leave supporter who now fears that a combination of a stalling economy and investor fear over a possible Corbyn premiership could create a storm that would stall Brexit. I spoke to another person who's familiar with the Brexit process who said to me they think there is a strong chance that it may not actually happen. But I did speak to one senior Brexiteer who is absolutely confident that Brexit will happen, if only for one very simple reason. Labour divisions mean that the legislation paving the way for Brexit will get through Parliament.
Nick, thanks very much indeed.